Hey everyone, Meiro Stamm here with the second part of a look at the music behind two short films. Talking today a little bit about Outward Gate, a BravoFact short that was done in 2008. Katherine Fitzgerald directed this one as well, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the film, and then I'm going to break down the opening sequence for you with a score that features clarinet and string quartet.
And Outward Gate is, it's more lyrical and I guess you could say artsy-fartsy. And it's about two men who, again, two people who don't meet. That's interesting. And one guy examines the stars through a telescope, and the other guy looks, examines the world through a microscope, and they live opposite each other, and they actually spy on each other. They observe each other as well. And it's about different ways of dealing with loneliness and their place in the cosmos and all this sort of stuff. And so we shot a lot of it at night. It was shot in the winter. So there's a stark loneliness to it. And, there are some really nice shots of, just the lighted window of the porch where the guy's looking at the stars and the snow blows in. And, so it's very atmospheric in that sense.
I wonder sometimes if his fascination with the stars, with things so far outside his grasp or touch, is actually a deeper search for something he can't find inside. That feeling lost and alone in a world he does not comprehend, he reaches outwards, upwards, and beyond for evidence that something more in fact exists. He searches for a trace of God, a shadow of a greater being, for some distant absent father who will one day account for all his loneliness down here. He seeks within the firmament something missing in his life.
And the interesting thing about that film is that there's voiceover in it, but the film plays just as well without the voiceover, because the music actually tells you everything you need to know about what's going on and what to feel without being told by the voiceover. And contractually we had to use the voiceover because that was our agreement and our pitch. But so there are two versions of the film, one with and one without the voiceover. And I think it's very interesting how the film plays. It's much, you have a time limit with these films, so sometimes they can feel very fast and you're squashing a lot of material in. And when we take the voiceover out, it opens it up, and it's much. The pacing is easier to watch, I think, and I think it just shows the power of music and image. How much you can do with just that and no dialogue, and especially as a professional dialogue editor, I've always wanted to make films with no dialogue.
So here we are in the sequence for the opening of Outward Gate. And this entire score is done for clarinet and string quartet. And it's actually harmonically quite simple, but the timing is interesting because it flip-flops between 7/8 and 4/4. As you can see in the score here, it changes every single bar. And if we just count eighth notes, you can get a sense of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on like that. And I'll get to why I did that in a moment. But let's just have a look at kind of the major musical material here. So the first thing is what I call the loneliness theme. And that's introduced by the clarinet at the beginning. I don't have all the samples loaded, but it's then taken over by the cello. And that appears throughout the film and throughout the score, just performed by different instruments. And then there are these very simple chords that happen. E minor, B minor, A minor, E minor, D major, B minor. Simple, simple stuff. And then there's this flowing eighth note line that starts in, what is that there? Bar 21. And hopefully I can kind of play this for you. And again, that jumps all around into different registers and through the different harmonies on various instruments. So let's just have a look at this scene without any music. And this is with the temporary voiceover, not the actors. And then we'll have a look at it with the music.
There's a man across the way who through the day peers down into his microscope and looks for something. I watch him with his slides of glass, his test tubes and his beakers, and I can't help but wonder why his focus is so narrow, so inward, so inherently reclusive, when there are so many bigger things to know, so much more out there that he could search for.
So this is very much for me about the loneliness of these two men and what they're looking for in life through their microscopes
There's a
and
man
telescopes.
in the building to the right who every night sits at his telescope and pans across the sky. And I can't help but wonder what he seeks up there, in the abstract, at things too far to see with any clarity, too far removed to have impact on his life, at things that even now may not exist, their lights extinguished long ago, and only just arriving at his eye.
So there we go, without any music. And as we'll see in a moment, my aim really was to highlight their loneliness, but also the idea that there's kind of something swirling around, whether it's in the greater universe or the sort of microverse, and just that kind of constant motion and constant evolution that's happening around them, and their constant search to find what that is. So let's have a look here at this music in the final film.
There's a man across the way who, through the day, peers down into his microscope and looks for something. I watch him with his slides of glass, his test tubes and his beakers, and I can't help but wonder why his focus is so narrow, so inward, so inherently reclusive, when there are so many bigger things to know, so much more out there that he could search for.
There's a man in the building to the right who every night stands at his telescope and pans across the sky. And I can't help but wonder what he seeks up there, in the abstract, at things too far to see with any clarity, too far removed to have impact on his life, at things that even now may not exist, their lights extinguished long ago, and only just arriving at his eye.
Hi, Mr. Clark.
Thank you.
So there you go, the music of Outward Gate as featured on 2 short films available at iTunes and CD Baby and so on. And of course, please check out my website as well, geoharmonic.com, and check back here, or better yet, subscribe to my channel for more videos looking at some other scores and various other projects that I've done. So long for now.